because William Miller had said that Jesus would come, and I brought with me my own copy of the 1836 edition of William Miller's lectures, Evidence from Scripture and History of the Second Coming of Christ about the year 1843, exhibited in a course of lectures by William Miller. So Miller didn't set the October 22 date, ever. He came to accept it just before the disappointment. But he said about the year 1843, so we call this the 1843 chart. And there's another little thing that you maybe hadn't heard of, and most people don't know about it. There's really 3 editions of this chart. It was put together by Charles Fitch and maybe some others who worked with him. He was staying in Haverhill, Massachusetts. I probably massacred that. I think it's Haverhill. I think that's how they say it, Haverhill. Okay, good to get that straight. Anyway, if you look at this chart, this I think is the last of the 3 charts, because originally there was an image of Greece with the 3 horns of the generals, 4 horns of the generals, with a little horn coming off of one of those horns. Well, they kind of thought, no, maybe that's not right, because it came from somewhere. Did it come from one of the horns or come from one of the winds? Well, we'll not try to do the study of that right now, but there was a change in understanding in this chart, and so the picture is removed. So you notice there's a blank here, right? And there's one with just no picture and just like this, but then the last one, they added another horn out here, which is Rome, which would have then come from one of the winds. So you have these 3 editions. So this is the last edition of the 1843 chart. Maybe you don't care about that. Maybe it's not that important. But the point is, this supported the leading up, bringing the world to be aware of the soon coming of Jesus and the great appointment that God had made, because it was a disappointment, but it was also a great appointment where Jesus began that special work in the last days, in these last days in the most holy place of the heavenly sanctuary.
Okay, so he is right. William Miller, I've heard a number of people who get this wrong, and he's correct. William Miller didn't set the October 22nd, 1844 date. That was one of what Doug Batchelor would call the kooky cousins of the movement. Samuel Snow, who thought he was also the return of Elisha the prophet before the second coming. Later in 1845, Snow declared himself to be Elisha the prophet, the messenger that would appear immediately prior to the advent of Jesus the King. This is on the Encyclopedia of Seventh-day Adventists. This guy was a total kook, total crackpot. He's the one that came up with this crazy date, using all sorts of wonky Jewish math. But again, Dr. Burt, Ellen said that God showed her the chart was not to be altered. This was supposedly because God wanted them to be deceived to see if they were really loyal to the cause. But then apparently he did want the chart altered because they altered it multiple times. But then at the end, he tacked in this common thing. Christians, you're going to hear them say this all the time. And it shows the 19th century mindset that they are stuck in a very small region of the United States in the 19th century. This movement is what raised the awareness of the soon coming, the imminent return of Jesus. He said they made the soon coming of Jesus, they made it aware by the Miller chart. This is just crazy. This is not true. At the time of the Adventist movement, for folks who don't know, they were in the northeastern peninsula of the country, which was like my spiritual ancestors. The fruits of their labors were what this Advent movement was growing up in. The imminent return view was not the popular view like it is today, at least in the West. The post-millennial eschatology of the day was what was popular. So because in that region, there was a heavy influence from Presbyterian Covenanters and Puritans coming from the continental England, that somehow means that the whole world thought like their region did. So everyone believed like the post-millennial eschatology of their northeastern region that was heavily influenced by Puritans. And so because that's the case, they like raised up and made an awareness of the imminent return of Christ. It's just silly. It's silly. Adventists, stop saying this. Don't say this. To act like you guys like resurrected this idea from the dead is just silly. It's just silly. We can find people all through church history that had various imminent return views. Just the idea that Christ could return at any moment, which is also funny because just one thing in passing on that, the Adventist church doesn't really believe that. They say that, but then this is where the inconsistency of the system breaks down. The imminent return, he could return at any moment, so we have to be ready at any moment, yet at the same time, the mark of the beast is not a conditional prophecy. So the Sunday law has to come first. It's just, there's all sorts of those in their eschatology. But just, again, all of that to say that, no, the Adventist church did not repopularize the idea of the imminent return of Christ. This is just something that's part of one of these talking points that is, no, you popularize something that wasn't popular in that region. We didn't have internet, phones, etc. So ideas spread by people migrating and taking those ideas, etc.